And besides, who doesn't need any extra excuse to play Isolation?
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
we should be live.
I believe we've... Is this where you've... Did you click the schedule?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I'm just suffering through 1,000 ads. Okay, yeah, there we go. No, we're good. We're live. Welcome, Xander. Welcome, Christopherson. And Mike Scuderi. I've not seen you for a while, buddy. Do you remember Mike, Adam?
I guess I haven't seen him for a while either.
He was
Especially
the writer.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
I remember that comic, yeah. Well, welcome back.
M Projects. Welcome.
I am just pulling up the chat here.
Sarah Scuderi. Welcome. Oh, Mike says Ash is coming out in the next couple of weeks. That's been a good few years in the making. Wasn't that Covenant time you started? Oh, pardon me. Wasn't that Covenant time you started working on that? I think it was.
Okay. Got the game pulled up. So yes, welcome everyone to another Sunday stream, and today we are joined by the author for I guess I should say new book instead of upcoming, because it is out now, right?
Yep, that's right.
Alien Isolation. Perfect Organism, an Alien Isolation Companion, and we're joined by author Andy Kelly. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So we figured it'd be appropriate to play Alien Isolation for today's stream. So Aaron wants me to suffer through the medical section. So I will give...
It's one of the best parts of the game.
Yeah, big time.
That's true, but it's before you get the flamethrower, so it's a bit more tricky.
I tell you what, if you get through it, we'll send this to Eric.
Is it... I'm trying to remember the chapter name.
I think it's
I should
4,
know
isn't
this.
it?
It's not that early on.
It's either the quarantine or outbreak. I should know that, but
I
it's one of those two.
I think it's the quarantine. Well, we're going to find out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is.
Oh, right.
Andy's a bit low volume-wise. Let me boost him on my end, folks.
Nothing but professionalism.
Yep.
For us, is there?
Andy, you want to try speaking for me for a moment? Just like a testing,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
How's that? Testing, 1, 2, 3. How's that?
Is that any
Does that
better,
sound
folks?
Xander says great.
Okay, good.
Iz just says, I got this game for free with my AMD, together with Star Citizen in 2014. God, the lighting in this game was ahead of its time. You know what? It's been 10 years, and this game still looks phenomenal.
Yeah, that engine, the lighting engine they built, especially for the cathode engine, just looks incredible. Like,
And they built that in collaboration with AMD, I believe, which is probably why it came with a few of their cards.
yeah, there's the PC version has the AMD logo at the start.
So, Andy, it is a tradition on every single goddamn alien thing you will ever appear on for you to tell us about the first time you ever came across the alien.
Yeah. So I think in the 90s there was a thing. I can't remember what it was called, but it was in. I grew up in Glasgow, and it was a thing where you could go into like a recreation of like, you know, an alien-esque setting, and you could get
You
chased
did
around by
Alien
people
War?
in cinema. I no, that's the thing. Yeah, Alien War, that was the one. But my uncle told me about this Alien War thing, and I was gonna go, but I chickened out at the last minute, and then
Okay.
I watched the first film. I was way too young. I can't even remember what age I was, but it was from him telling me about this Alien War thing, and then me chickening out at the last minute and not doing it, which I regret and have regretted ever since. But that led me to watching the first film on a fuzzy VHS, appropriately enough, back in the, I don't know when, early 90s, mid 90s, and yeah, that was it. It infected my brain, and here I am now.
I'm not surprised you kind of kicking yourself for the Alien War thing. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah.
I forever hate that I never got to do that in London.
Oh, that's right.
It moved around a little bit, yeah.
I have to go through the vent here. Yeah, that looked really cool, the Alien War thing. I think they had the cast there when it first opened. Is that right?
And the London one.
That's right, there were 2 locations, weren't there?
3. I believe it was 3. I think it started in... We had a bunch of the cast on the show in the past, and they went through it there, but I think it started in, like, Bournemouth or something to start with. Then it went to Glasgow, and then it had its permanent home in London before it was flooded. Oh, they missed a treat for the, you know, there's something in the water.
Because of the flooding. I see.
Because of the flooding, yeah. Fucking hilarious.
So I
So,
remember... Oh, you go ahead, Aaron. I'm playing.
So, yeah, I don't want to distract you too much. Andy, do you... I've just finished. I read the book last week, and I wish I'd have took a few more extra notes because I wanted to ask you about. I think you missed out on the press run, the initial press run when they were demoing the game. Is that right? You came to it a little later.
Yes, I was on PC Gamer at the time, and and one of my colleagues went to the first preview event to write the cover feature, and he knew I was an Alien fan, and I remember him coming back to the office. I talk about this in the book, and he was like, "Dude, this is it. This is the Alien game." Like, and it was hot off the heels of Colonial Marines as well, which whose impact was, you know, everyone's aware of. But then they showed it at a perfect time when people were kind of losing faith in Alien as a video game. Offshoot this preview event, which was kind of infamous. Journalists were just taken into a dark room. No one was told what the game was or what they were about to experience, and then they sat and played this amazing vertical slice of showing off the AI and the environments and the lighting and the audio. They were sitting in the dark with headphones on, and that was it. They all came out and wrote glowing previews. But that I first heard about it from someone telling me about that event. But I managed to wrangle the review for PC Gamer and all ensuing coverage. So that's when my kind of obsession with it began.
Did you ever get to play any of the, you know, like the convention events? Because if I remember rightly, they did demo that slice at various things like Eurogamer and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I played a very early build, like a preview build, but which was likely one of the ones they have at those events. But I never played it at an event. I think it was at an E3. They like built some sets, kind of like corridors like these, and for people to play in, which sounded cool. But yeah, I only ever played it at my desk in the PC Gamer office and at home. But yeah, I mean, everyone who played it at those events really came back quite traumatized / thrilled
Yeah.
by what they just played. But I think the vertical slice was, it stripped out the crafting and stuff like that, the kind of systemic stuff, and just made it a pure sneaking around AI demo showcase kind of thing.
I just realized I just did a circle.
It was the Gemini Labs bit.
Yeah.
I got to play it at Creative Assembly many years ago, and that I remember coming out of the demo and having a literal adrenaline come down from the experience of playing it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I actually really like about the game is the physical reaction it elicits from you. I mean, that's Alien at its best when it's making you genuinely feel things, whether that is, adrenaline, whether that's terror, whether, you know, anything like that that has an actual reaction to your body.
There's a nice. I'm just looking at this level now. Like, this is probably one of my favorite missions. It's this. What I like about it is that each segment of Sevastopol like has some little stories running through it, like ancillary stories that don't necessarily tie into the discover a little story about Kuhlman sort of dipping into the medical supplies and writing kind of fake prescriptions for patients, but taking it all for himself. And if, as you, at this point, you think Kuhlman's kind of helping you as this embodied voice, and you think he's an ally. But as you read this stuff about him, you start to doubt, his intentions and the fact that he sent you down here, probably knowing that there's something down here. It's cool that just like the environmental stuff, all these little sub-narratives kind of just enrich the setting so much.
Yeah, definitely. The narrative team did a great job on expanding out the world without making it a huge distraction. And I think that's one of the great things about the game is the world building through design, through the logs, through the main narrative. It's and even just like the whole thing of Sevastopol and Siegson, it seeped into so much of the other lore after the fact.
And I like that. I think it was Will Porter, one of the writers, who said that I think he was in charge of creating this part of the station. And I think a lot of games, when they do hospital levels, they fall into the kind of spooky haunted asylum trope, which is increasingly kind of a bit dubious. So I think he wanted to like avoid that and I think that he settled on the idea of people coming here who are having like deep space, the sort of missing blue skies and air and oxygen, and like they're having sort of deep space fever, and you've got those like padded cells playing like recordings of like calming voices saying, imagine you're in laying on the cool grass in a field or whatever. I like the idea of like, it's not just a hospital, it's like someone's thought about what would a psychiatric hospital function as in deep space, and it's people getting like cabin fever on an extreme level.
Yeah, it's something I thought they handled really well beyond just the narrative elements is also just the aesthetics of making it feel like a realistic hospital in a sci-fi setting. I thought Dead Space 2 handled that really well also, just this hospital on a space station that looked very relatable, like they had like a little gift shop with cards and stuff.
Yeah, I like that when they were designing the hospital, in fact, I think for each region of each district of the station, they back engineered a set from the movie. So this whole area here is back engineered from the medical bay on the Nostromo. So if you look around, there's a lot of similarities in like architecture and props and decorations and stuff. Like, it's really cool that they just took that set and like extrapolated from it to make it feel like part of that universe. So well done.
And this is one of the best moments of the
That
Alien
animation,
franchise.
incredible.
Yep. I really wish they would repeat that in one of the films. Just the fluidity of the alien.
Yeah, the way
in
it
that
like
moment.
drips out of the vent, it's like it doesn't climb out or clamber out, it just sort of oozes out like so gracefully. Yeah.
I know an animator recreated that for Dead by Daylight for the Xenomorph's appearance in that game.
But I want to see it theatrically, Adam.
That would be nice, yes.
Xander asks, what does Andy think of the name Stompy for the Isolation Xeno?
Yeah, that I feel like that's a gameplay and kind of lore kind of separation where like if the alien in the movie was like walking around in the Nostromo making that much racket, I think they'd be better at avoiding it. But it's a good way of like, in terms of a stealth game, it's good to be able to like, if you've got I always play with headphones, and it's the 3D audio simulation's great, so you can like, when you play the game enough, I use my eyes less and use my ears more. So like there's certain sounds of it dripping out of vents or clambering back into a vent, giving you a breather that you kind of pick up and you can just follow it around. You can like hear it like 3 rooms away. It's stompy footsteps, which I think is just great. Like just adds another layer of like complexity to the stealth. But it makes no sense if they were that loud. I mean, it's not exactly perfect organism when it's like announced.
I completely agree with you. In my opinion, there is only one way to play Alien Isolation, and that is in the dark, with your headphones on, as close as possible to the screen. Although that said, you know, I will give Feral
Uh-oh. Oh. Did not quite hide in time there.
On the Switch and the iPad.
It's great on the Switch OLED because the kind of dark black shadows like really look great on that.
Yeah, I was surprised at how well it actually ran on the Switch.
And it's weird that it technically looks better than the console versions because and the PC version are quite jaggy on the edges of stuff, and the Switch version basically eliminated that with sort of like better AA, which is cool. So it ends up looking better, oddly, considering it's like 7-year-old hardware and a tiny screen.
Yeah. Mike says the book is so good, by the way. So we've already got readers in here.
Oh, brilliant! Thanks.
Caustic Viper says one of my favourite things about games like this is how the environment conveys what life was like before everything went to chaos. A beautiful form of world building.
Yeah.
Now you get to see that again. So
I always watch it from the one down there, because you can see more of it.
From where? The other side?
No, the one on the bottom of the stairs.
Oh, I see.
What difficulty are you playing on?
I'm just playing on normal, I think, for the stream. I have beaten it on Nightmare, but
Yeah, I haven't. That's too stressful experience for me. But
I'm playing it on hard, so we'll kick that down to medium for the stream.
when I was writing the book, I played through it on like whatever the lowest one is, story, just so I could actually have time to like look around at stuff without getting impaled constantly. Because like on story you get like left alone quite a lot. Like you can really the alien will disappear for ages, and you can just wander around reading stuff and looking at stuff, which I had to do to write the thing.
How many times did you replay it while you were writing?
I think only twice, but because in the 10 years preceding writing the book, I'd played through it like 5 or 6 times maybe. So yeah, it's firmly embedded in my brain. But I'm actually planning another replay now because I'm getting the itch again. It happens constantly. So
Now that the book's out there and getting into people's hands.
yeah, I want to play it again. The time has come.
Also good timing with the book and another playthrough, just because the game's about to hit its 10th anniversary.
Yep, which I'd like to say was genius PR scheduling on my part, but it was a complete accident. And the fact that Romulus came out was like, well, couldn't have planned that better myself. But yeah, I'm sure I'm hoping Sega does something for the 10th anniversary.
Have you heard the rumors?
Yeah.
Good.
I've seen some rumors floating around, but not from any sources that I've thought. Well, I believe that, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's just it's mostly been through a leaks Reddit at the minute.
Yeah.
Although we have heard rumblings, haven't we, Adam?
Yes, we have heard a thing or two.
Caleb says Sega will do one whole tweet for the anniversary.
Yep, the game's on sale on Steam. That's what we'll get.
I always found it disappointing that Sega didn't really think the game succeeded.
Yeah. I think it was maybe 2 million copies sold, which, you know, that's a lot of people, but in terms of spreadsheets and line go up, that's probably not great for Sega.
I would imagine it's had a better long haul though.
Yeah, it's a real word of mouth game, I think, and it's become like, I guess you could call it a cult game. I don't know if it's too big to be a cult game, but yeah.
I would think so at this point, surely.
Yeah.
And it's seen a resurgence as well, naturally, thanks to Romulus. You know, it's been making the gaming journo headlines again.
Yeah, like I was writing about it when I was a games journalist. I quit a couple of years ago, but when I was, I wrote about Alien Isolation in the fallow years when no one was paying attention to it. I was still writing about it, and now everyone's doing it. Like, where were you 5 years ago?
When it mattered.
Everyone had forgotten about it.
So I didn't realize.
2.1
Sorry, go ahead. Aaron.
2.1 million copies as of May 2015.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't realize initially that you did the PC Gamer review, Andy, which I remember reading back in the day and thought it was a great review, and especially off the what a lot of us felt was the very unfair IGN review to see it get the kind of praise it did from PC Gamer, and not only from the review, but it winning Game of the Year. I remember even that decision was a little controversial. Oh, he coming.
You need to be stealthier, boy.
Well, you can't be too stealthy, otherwise you're just dealing with the alien a lot. You have to like walk confidently to get to where you're going, and then kind of adapt. At least that's.
Yeah, I was very glad we made it Game of the Year. That there wasn't much, like, you think there might be a lot of tense discussion about that, but I think everyone was in agreement because I'd successfully evangelized it to everyone else in the team, and they all played it. And yeah, I don't think there's. Yeah, I mean, I was happy. I think I gave it like 91% or something for PC Gamer. In hindsight, I should have given it more, but obviously it's all academic. It didn't matter. It's a great game. But I gave it 5 stars for The Guardian as well. Like, I felt like I was doing my bit to counterbalance GameSpot and IGN both giving it 6 or 5 out of 10 or whatever it was. Like, that was I think that was a real blow to the game. Like, 2 of the biggest outlets in giving it quite a scathing review was like really could only have harmed its. There would have been a lot of people who saw them and went, "I won't bother playing that then," which to me is a tragedy. But yeah.
It's kind of funny because that review, I think, damaged some of IGN's reputation anyway. I mean, to this day,
it's still brought up. Yeah.
Like,
I was reading the comments for that review, which there's this argument still raging in the comments under that to this day. 10 years of like bile. It's quite entertaining.
I mean, you have the misfire that was the digital series. They gave that to IGN to debut, and that was. I think I even said to Fox at the time, I was like, What are you doing here? Oh. So, speaking of those few points that you did not give the game, that 0.5 or whatever it was, Xander asks, what is your least favourite part of Isolation? What knocked those points off?
Yeah, well, I think the reason I gave it a lower score, and this is something I'm still critical of in the book, is I think that at some point the narrative underwent massive changes, and you can really tell, like, it feels quite underdeveloped in terms of story and character. I feel like I would have liked, because for a big part of Alien for me is like the characters, like the crew of the Nostromo are as important to me as everything else. I feel like everyone is kind of underused and underdeveloped, but I think I feel like it's a victim of, because there's so much cut content. And there's what the developers have come out and said, oh, it was narratively butchered. Maybe not butchered, that's a bit negative, but it was like, things were changed quite significantly at some point, and I feel like the story is underdeveloped, and that's the only reason my only main criticism of it. I would have liked a bit more, sort of narrative richness, but I mean, it's all relative. It's still, I think it's still a good story, but would have just liked a little bit more, like maybe more conversations with people and other survivors on the station and stuff. But yeah,
a little less isolation.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe there was more of like speaking to survivors, but that would have like gone in contradiction to the name of the game. So maybe it is better that you're on your Todd for most of it. But Yeah, it's just I think that was the only thing, but I think in general, like there's not one part of the game I don't really like. I feel like the Solomon's Galleria kind of sci-fi shopping mall again feels a little underdeveloped. Like a lot of the environmental storytelling is very rich, and when you get to that part of the game, it feels like maybe they ran out of time to really flesh that place out. But in general, I think it's pretty consistent all the way through, and I don't mind the length, which was another bone of contention. I actually wrote a kind of quite embarrassing to read back defense of the length of it, because I think the common theme is like it's too long, but I really don't think that. I don't know
Yeah,
what
I agree.
I wanted more, not less. I've been missing some of the comments here. So what have we got? Sorry. Here's I don't think you talked about this in the book actually. I'd be curious to hear what you think of this. So Caustic Viper said, I found out there was a feature where the alien can hear your audio. So that was on Xbox with Connect, if I remember rightly.
Yes, yeah.
So Caustic Viper was like got slaughtered over eating a Pringles chip one time, and felt the lasting trauma since. What do you think of that as a feature? Was that a little too immersive, or was that on point?
I thought that was pretty clever. I only realized I'd omitted that from the book after it was like off for publication. I was kicking myself, but yeah, I think the PS4 DualShock built-in mic as well would pick up sounds. It's something that it's a really cool idea, but I think Manhunt possibly did it first. I don't know if anyone remembers Rockstar's Manhunt, but it had if you had a PS2 headset, you could put it on whilst playing. You could whistle to like lure enemies, but it also meant that if you coughed or something while you were hiding, the guys would come over to you. So yeah, had been done before, but I think it's a cool novelty feature. I don't think it certainly adds an extra layer of horror, but I don't really think this game needs any more added tension.
No, not at all. Although that said, I can't remember if you mentioned this. Did you ever try playing the VR mods?
Yeah, I talk about that in the book a little bit. Yeah, I played so with the first version, I don't know if this was ever taken out, but the build I had of the game on PC had some kind of experimental VR mode built into it. On the Oculus DK1, which is the first Oculus headset that anyone could buy, and it had like really high latency and low resolution, and even with those limitations and no motion controls or anything, just playing with a controller at my desk in the PC Gamer office, it was absolutely harrowing. And seeing that thing coming at you and realizing that it's 9 foot tall is like, I was like, yeah, I don't want to play this anymore. I think at some point there was going to be, I think Sega Hardlight, the developer was working on like a VR, like an officially sanctioned VR mode with like some specially tailored missions for VR, but I think it didn't happen in the end, which is a shame. But yeah,
there was a fan made mod that came out called Mother VR, which was certainly an experience. Yeah, the terror was incredible, but it reinforced that it would work in VR if something was built from the ground up. I always thought, which is why I'm very excited for Rogue Incursion.
yeah.
Do you think you can stomach Rogue Incursion?
VR setup to play it, but yeah, I mean it looks cool. But I think just plugging VR into this game as it exists is always going to be a bit of a hamstrung experience. VR is always best when it's made for it.
Yeah. So apparently IGN's removed their review from the website.
Really? That's interesting.
Well, that's what chat's saying.
I just googled it and it's still there.
Okay,
5.9 mediocre.
Uh,
Still not the great alien game we were hoping for. Wow. But Yeah, I tried to be like, obviously I'm not a fan of that review, but I tried to be a little bit adult about it in the book. I didn't want to go into like I
Yeah.
didn't want to like,
Go
yeah,
after IGN.
airing of grievances. I was like, it's fine, whatever. We know the game's great.
Yeah. Mitch
This
says, "How does it
oh
still
sorry,
look this good?"
yeah, that's just that lighting, and I think they went for a kind of, if you look at the textures, I think from what I've read, they went more hard on like materials and surfaces and like rather than texture. So if you look there, like there's not much texture detail, but there's tons of like metal and
Mm.
kind of like I'm if I was a game tech artist, I'd be able to describe this better. But it's like actually texture-wise, it's very simple. Almost some of the textures are almost non-existent. It's just a flat color, but there's really good intricacy in terms of all the machinery and the lighting and stuff. I think that's what really helps it, because I think texture is something that can age a game. Like if you play Half-Life 2, the text, a lot of it still holds up, but the textures particularly are quite low res and like a kind of pixely, whereas I think this still looks great regardless of like its age, and I think it'll look good forever. I think it's a testament to the timeless nature of good art direction. And this is always going to look great.
Caustic Viper says Adam is playing a risky game of cat and mouse with Stompy.
That's right.
Like how fast he moved there. Like, yeah, I like how sometimes it's kind of carefully creeping around, and it'll occasionally just have a surge of speed just to like really, really freak you out.
Sizzy says, I didn't know there was so much stuff cut. Yeah, there was a surprising. Well, I don't want to say surprising because I feel like, I mean, you'll obviously be able to speak to this better, Andy, but it feels like no video game has an easy development. So
Yeah,
much stuff seems
yeah.
to end up on the floor.
Yeah, that's something that like I work with a lot of game developers now. I work in publishing for Devolver Digital, and I talk to tons of developers now. And like from what they've told me is that when you work on a game, don't get too attached to anything. You could spend 6 months or a year working up some narrative thing and like carefully constructing it and tying it onto the gameplay, and then in the gameplay they go, oh, we had to cut that entire system because it just didn't work, and then that will screw up your narrative. So like it's not just game narrative is not just like sitting and writing a story. It's constantly, you're at the mercy of every other aspect of development. So I feel like that's the reason why there's so much cut content. Every game's got cut content, but yeah, there's a lot in this. This is a great moment. Love the way it oozes out of the shadows here. Brilliant.
Have you watched that video of what the alien does when it's not on screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, that moment in there on that video.
To drop some trivia on you, Dr. Coolman, whoever plays him is not credited, so no one knows who did his voice. But also his face is, a lot of the faces in the game are modeled on the development team, and the face of Dr. Coolman is Clive Grattan, who was like the lead. I think he was like the lead programmer on the game. He was the one interviewed in No Clips, behind the scenes documentary. So it's kind of cool that they like put their own faces in there. I thought some of the other characters are based on developers or people they know.
Yeah, you do see that happen in these games sometimes. Like I remember Rebellion in the AVP Gold Edition. It was just all their developers acting out different characters that would help the player on these screens on the wall in a level or something.
To physically be on, to be visualized, I think is really cool.
So I remember when I was younger getting an unofficial guide for the films called Beautiful Monsters. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, Andy.
No.
But I was just curious in terms of like writing an unofficial companion. I mean, I guess that just falls into fair use. Like, is there ever any like worry like the license holder may have an issue with it, or is it usually pretty, as long as it's criticism commentary, it's fairly open for what you do?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, if you're writing about a work of art and a critical or analytical stance. I think you're allowed. Obviously, my publisher would have dealt with all this behind the scenes, but the only thing I couldn't do was use imagery from the game, which was a shame because I would have liked to have like got the debug camera and like snip around and take screenshots and stuff. But just the nature of licensing, especially a license owned by Disney slash what remains of Fox or whatever, like it would just been too tricky. So that's the only thing. But that's why I got that's why I got John McKellen, who is the lead UI artist of the game, who did all the great mini game UI stuff and designed the logo and did all the VHS distortion. I commissioned him to do the illustrations for the book and to create a new set of semiotic standards and channel his inner Ron Cobb. And he'd created like a new set of semiotic standard icons for isolation. So he'd already like done the homework of figuring out the exact curvature of the corners of the icons and all that. So I got him to do a set for the book, which was like my way of like having a little bit of connection to the game, but in a kind of totally unofficial capacity. Like, yeah, you just got to dance around the fact that it's not an official thing a little bit.
And what am I missing here? I know I need one more tank. It's actually good. Oh, there it is right there. It's good that I am starting to play this a bit more before the anniversary because I honestly haven't played it in a while, so I'm a little rusty.
This is quite a strange little like mini environmental puzzle. There's not many of them in it. Like, I wonder if they maybe felt that there wasn't enough friction in this section and players were moving through it too fast. They were like, let's give them something to do. But it's quite kind of unusual sequence, this.
Oh, there he is. Now I can enter this room.
I don't think I've ever seen the alien enter this area. I wonder if it's one of the ones that's blocked off. I feel like you can sprint around here and it never appears.
Well, we can find out. Let's see.
I just realised I've had my mic on mute.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Right. Okay, so Mr. Snaztastic says San Cristobal really is the great filter for the game. Talk about a difficulty spike.
Oh, yep, he's coming.
To be fair, you made it through that.
Well, I was wrong. I feel like there are parts of the game where people have told me, oh, I never saw the alien there. And I think, in all the times I've played it, I've seen an alien in an event, inside event, like 3 times or something. Like, there are some, I guess it's that random element to the AI that means not everyone's going to have the same experience, which I guess is, for me, is part of like why it's such a great horror game. Because, I mean, some people criticize the unpredictability of it, but what would be scary about a completely predictable alien? The idea is that you don't know what it's going to do is the roots of the horror. Like, but I guess like some stealth game design can be frustrating if there's no patterns to find. But it just wouldn't work as a horror game if there was easily identifiable patterns and it was just patrolling back and forth.
It is one of the strengths of the game. Stompy's intelligence and the fact that so many people can have so different and varied playthroughs is what makes Isolation one of those, pinnacles of the Alien experience.
Oh, there's a way to avoid that explosive thing. I think they put the cones there as like a visual aid to go, don't walk down here. But I think I do it every time. But I think if you go around the parallel corridor, you can avoid triggering that flame blast.
Did not realize that.
And I think that when the flame blast goes off, I think in the background, the kind of AI director, I'm pretty sure the intensity level is ratcheted up a little bit. Whereas if you don't, I feel like you get pressured a little bit less by the alien. But that could be purely created in my head. Like, it's hard to know what the AI director is doing. It's all quite well obscured.
Gusty Viper says, Adam, you got me holding my breath every time you pull up your motion tracker. It shows the Xeno is just around the corner.
Yeah, this is definitely an intense game. I feel like I'm lucky I'm a bit desensitized because I love survival horror games and I love aliens, so but even for someone like me, it can, especially those first playthroughs I had, it can get your heart going.
I mean, a little bit too much for some people who just physically can't play it because it's such an intense experience.
Mm. Did you, when you were playing the game, Andy, like the first time, if you can think back to them, did you have a moment where you were like, right, that is enough for me right now? I'm going to put this down and come back to it.
I don't remember. I think that where my situation was different is that I had like 5 days to review it, to play it to completion, and then write the review. And it was a big review as well. It was 4 pages, 6 pages. So whenever I got into that situation, I was like, right, maybe if I was playing this at home, I'd be like, I'll have a break now. But that's the nature of reviewing games. You just got to keep playing, no matter how you feel, whether you hate the game or whatever. You're like, well, I've got to keep playing to review it. So I think I had that, and that gave me the the courage to just push on through the more harrowing sections.
Ah, I did not mean to do that.
For me, it was when the doors to the reactor open up and you see the mucus dripping along the door and you see the hive. I was like, right, that's it. That was my first break of playing Isolation. I'd been beasting it through until that point. I was like, no, I cannot handle this. I'm going to come back to this tomorrow morning.
There's one section I find quite on replays I find quite grueling, which is surprisingly not involving the alien. It's, I think, when you first encounter the hazmat working Joes, who are like can take such a beating, and are like basically until you get the I can't remember what it's called,
The bolt gun?
weapon that like fires, the bolt gun. Until you get that, they're a total nightmare. And like there's a bit where you're like in a flooded server room and there's hazmat Joes pacing back and forth, and I find that section like really grueling. I always dread it when I replay. It's not too long, but it's quite a difficulty spike. And I think you lose all your stuff as well at that point.
Yeah.
Or just before, so you don't have you're scurrying around trying to scavenge stuff, so you got limited supplies.
I really like it when you have the Joes and the Stompy interacting with each other, the brief moments that you get that.
Yeah, I think one of the lines, like the Joe just looks at it and goes, "What are you?" Like,
Yeah.
I love that inquisitiveness. That's so cool. This is where the Blade Runner references in the locker.
Yeah, the little unicorn.
Origami unicorn, yeah.
2505.
There's also, I was trying to figure out why there's a statue of a panther or some kind of big cat in there as well. If that was a reference to anything. Don't know if anyone knows if that's like a deep cut reference to some piece of alien media. I don't know, or someone just thought it'd be cool to put a panther in there. But if it's next to the origami unicorn, I feel like it probably has some significance.
Meaning. Yeah, I don't think that's ever been a question I've ever got answered. Chat, if anybody knows, throw it up in there.
I mean, Feral Interactive, the developer who did the port for Switch, their logo's like possibly a leopard or something, but I doubt it's that because they weren't working on the game at that point. But
no,
who knows?
I don't think we started to get Feral working on the ports and stuff until after Covenant, when Fox kicked up the EU sort of marketing and push for events. Crawling Chaos says the IGN review is still up. They were just redirected to a regional thing where it wasn't there.
Here's Patient Zero.
So M Project also points out that the ID tags and the mugshots in the various marshals' offices are the dev team as well.
Yeah, Chief Porter's is Will Porter's face, and they're all done in like ASCII portraits. I like that.
Yeah, the old printers.
Yeah.
Which was another thing I like. Them. I think Creative Assembly called it lo-fi sci-fi, didn't they? But just maintaining and embracing that aesthetic. was again another part of strength, one of the strengths of the game. Because it feels so much like it's in the world of Alien because of it.
I read a great quote from one of the art directors, where he said that even the temperature of all the light sources, there's no LED lights. They're all like bulbs from the bulbs from the 70s. So if you look at all the lights and the little diodes and stuff, they all got kind of warmth to them, which was like a conscious decision to like not make it look LED and modern. And I just think that attention to detail is like, yeah, it's like nuggets of trivia like that are like crack to me. I love that. It's like that's dedication. If you like even adjusting the temperature of light sources to look more like bulbs from the period, that's why this game's great. That kind of.
It definitely handled the lo-fi sci-fi like retro tech aesthetic really well. It was actually going back and listening to our original review, it was something I criticized a bit for them going too far in. I'm like, you have like tape players here and stuff. Like this is a bit much, but I don't know. It just goes to the charm of the game so much, I feel like, and it's something I was happy to see repeated in Alien Romulus recently.
Yeah, I think Alistair Hope, one of the leads on this game, when I interviewed him, he said that to him, like part of the impact of the lo-fi sci-fi thing is that, and from a horror perspective, it gives you that feeling like technology's not going to save you. Like there's not some like advanced Star Trek-esque piece of incredible tech here that's going to like protect you or save you. You're surrounded by this very rudimentary, practical, utilitarian tech, and that sort of subtly adds to the horror because you feel like it's an advanced feature, but it's not like you can pull out some like mega laser blaster and shoot the alien. Like I think that's quite a cool, subtle little piece of kind of production design tying into the horror.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that mentality. That is a psychological thing as well, that the the game really does affect your psyche. Mr. Snaztastic says some of the sound details in this are great. I just realised the other night that they're specific footsteps for walking through blood spatter.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's a good nugget. Yeah, like the sound design is incredible. Another reason to play with headphones. There's like a lot of I like the noisiness of Alien and Blade Runner. I think the soundscapes in that are quite similar and actually share a lot of the same sound effects. Where there's always computers chirping and stuff burbling away and steam hissing, and like it's a quiet game, but like there's always that ambient background soundscape of like just sci-fi sounding stuff chirping away, which is another thing like it nails in terms of replicating the vibe of the movie. I think that the sound designers had I think they got access to original DAT tapes, or probably not DAT tapes, like old recordings from the sound designers who did all those original computer chirps and bleeps, and you can hear like the audio designers like between takes, talking and stuff. So they used some of them, but I think because of the quality, they kind of took them and recreated a lot of them, which is just like what a dream for a sound designer, getting access to original Foley recordings from Alien. Like that's what a treat that would have been.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I visited CA, one of the things me and the guy who I went down with was shown was some of these tapes, the original sound effect tapes, and I still remember to this day. I think I actually still have the recording on my dictaphone. Was the sound designers working on like I mean, it's completely irrelevant to the game really, but it was the sort of like space sound effects in the opening sequence, the title sequence, and you could hear the sound designers talking to each other between making all the bits and pieces. They had such a treasure trove of reference material on on Isolation. What was it, like 5 terabytes of stuff or something?
Yeah, it's funny that figure. I've heard from multiple developers a different number for how many terabytes it was. Like I've heard 6, I've heard 9, I've heard 5. I think basically the idea, it was just lots of stuff. But yeah, no one can agree on how many terabytes it was. But yeah, I wonder how much of that stuff. A lot of it's made it into books like J.W. Rinsler's like amazing making of book, but there's probably still so much stuff out there. like they talked about continuity Polaroids. I'd love to look at all those. They should just do a book of those. Like, I want to see that stuff, but it's all in the vault. Maybe it'll come out someday.
A lot of it tends to. I mean, there's bits and pieces that make it into the hands of collectors and stuff. You know, Harry Harris, who used to have like a really big collection in the UK, he had a lot of privately acquired continuity Polaroids for Aliens.
Oh well.
So there are bits and pieces out there.
Yeah. I wonder how many of the. I mean, I always liked the detail that some of the CA artists went and looked at some of the original props and were like, kind of amazed that they were all like blocks of wood with paint peeling off. Like, I wonder how many
Yeah.
props are like still intact in private collectors' collections from that original movie.
Yeah, I'd love to see more of those. But that's a whole other fucking world. That is prop collectors. Not one to share.
Yeah.
He's making his rounds.
Barry Bellen says, "Where's the alien? When I did this level, the damn thing was everywhere."
It's an example of that.
Unpredictability.
Yeah. I think it's like a behind-the-scenes pressure system where the game will sense, like, if you've had a long period of being kind of unmolested by the thing, it'll ratchet up its intensity. But yeah, I don't know what's happening here. I feel like this section here, there are certain parts in the game where a lot of the time the alien's behavior is emergent and based on player behavior, but sometimes in certain sections they'll manually crank up its intelligence or unlock new paths in like its mind map, its AI nodes. And I feel like this bit here, for me anyway, it's always been more aggressive and more active. So I wonder if, I guess that reflects the fact that the alarm's wailing and that's going to draw its attention. But there are certain parts of the game where I brace myself knowing, right, this is where the alien gets more active. And
Well, he's here. Like, he's right there, drooling, ready for me.
they still get me, those drools. I never see them. I always get yanked up.
Yeah, same. You'd think. I mean, I always forget to actually pay attention to the vents. I mean, that's a flaw.
Oh,
But
there
I
it is
have.
right there. Oop! Oh, couldn't sneak around it. I should have waited.
Generation Selfie says, "Where is your review for Romulus?" It is coming today after this stream or tomorrow morning, being BST UK time. I locked myself away this weekend and finished it. Mr. Snaztastic says, "Space whale is what they call the almost win-like ambience." Yes, that's right. I did almost say it, but I couldn't remember if that was actually what. I was thinking the right thing. So speaking on the sound stuff as well, of isolation specifically, I don't know if you've listened to the Audible, Sandy, the original, the adaptations that Audible's done of various Alien novels.
No, I haven't. No, I haven't actually. No, I've read a few of the novelizations, but yeah, I've not heard any of the audiobook versions.
Well, the audibles, which are like the radio play style adaptations from Dirk Maggs, make liberal use of the sound effects from Isolation.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
I should listen to those.
Well, yeah, definitely. I recommend them. Very much recommend them. Dirk Maggs did a fantastic job. There's 4 of them. They did an adaptation of Out of the Shadows by Tim Lebbon, Sea of Sorrows by James A. Moore, River of Pain by Christopher Golden, and they also adapted William Gibson's Alien 3.
Oh, yeah.
Which has Lance and Michael Biehn back voicing Hicks and Bishop. But yeah, being there's again an audio format, it shows the strength of the game's sound design that other audio formats make very liberal use of the effects.
Don't mind me.
I think that the human survivors are a bit of a weak link in this as well, where I think their behavior is not terribly complex. You can have fun, I like having fun with them and like using noisemakers to draw the alien towards them and kill them and stuff, but there's not much complexity with humans. The alien and what it shows are much more interesting, I think.
They're consistently aggressive and there's not much you can't really do much else with them. They're there to either bait the aliens with, or just avoid. That's about your only options, isn't it?
There we go, one of Marshall Wake's genius plans in action.
His plans love to get you killed or almost killed, don't they?
I like that one of the DLCs. I mean, we're all right to talk spoilers here, aren't we?
Of course.
Yeah, I like that one of the DLCs explains that the explosion that severs the tether on the spacewalk at the start was another one of Marshall Wake's let's blow stuff up plans, and triggered by Ricardo. Like, that was, there's not much narrative in the DLC, but I like that little nugget kind of explained what that explosion was at the start of the game.
I love that we get to see new environments of the station on the DLCs, but I think they were a bit undercut by just not having any real narrative or cutscenes as part of them, and it was solely like a challenge mode where you complete different objectives and stuff. I feel like there was potential there to get more stories from survivors of the station.
Yeah, they're so light on narrative. Like, the idea of like playing as Ransom, you know, trying to smuggle the xenomorph sample off the station to give to Will-Yutani, like, that's a great setup, but in reality it's just a thin excuse to have a challenge mode level. And I don't really, the scoring system feels kind of at odds with the spirit of the game a bit for me. It's for people who want to like really dig into the systems and stealth gameplay, but I think the reason I play this game is like for the story and vibe, and people don't enjoy the challenge modes, but yeah, they feel more like gamey, the DLC ones, which by design that's what they're like, but
it's at odds with the rest of the feel of the main game. But that was that was another one I ended up playing at one of the events. I think that was another Eurogamer when they demoed that mode. And it's funny because they had like a scoreboard up on the booth, and if you finished it, so this was the first Survivor map. Is it the basement? I think it's called.
Yeah.
And if you actually finished and the alien didn't kill you, you got your time put up on this scoreboard, and they give you a T-shirt for finishing it. I think I went through it about 3 or 4 times before I made it out the mission and got a shirt.
Yeah, the difficulties I think ramped up to the highest on those DLC missions. Yeah, which I thought was an interesting, from a design perspective, like, why that is going to limit who's going to play them if it's like cranked up so high, but that appeals to the challenge aspect of them.
You have the exception of the prequel DLCs based on the first Alien film, though, because those still have difficulty select.
Do they? Yeah.
And they are fun, I mean, obviously they're not a one-for-one narrative of the film, but as a recreation for the game, I very much enjoyed Crew Expendable.
Yeah. The kind of little what-if element of sending someone else into the events is cool as well.
And that was one of the levels I played in VR. Going through the vents as Dallas absolutely shit me up. Especially with Veronica Cartwright's, panic in your ears.
Yeah.
I do wish they'd have done more with it on the side, because I think the game, and I think this of the rest of the EU as well. I think the game and the world that it built is ripe for more stories, more mini stories of various survivors living their life and trying to survive and what have you.
That's what's good about this game. You get so many small stories about like minor, unimportant people, like what their life is like in this kind of setting, which I really enjoyed.
Even like the Mike Tanaka stuff, that's so obscure and ultimately meaningless in the impact of the game, but it's just a testament to the world building. Now, if they did an Isolation 2, would you want them to tell a different story on Sevastopol, or would you want them to continue Amanda, or maybe just focus on the style of the game?
Yeah, I think my sort of dream for a sequel would be to be set on a colony, like I had least hope.
Yeah.
With sort of some brief ventures outside, but on maybe a planet with a really hostile atmosphere. So it's not you running around outside for ages, but you occasionally have to go out to get something, and maybe it's all foggy or the environment's really hazardous. So like you feel really exposed. I like I think it was there was a game based on The Thing, which I think has been remastered by Night Dive Studios
Yeah.
at the moment, and that was really good at like you'd occasionally have to venture out into the blizzardy outside of the base and follow sort of lights through the blizzard, and then you always felt so exposed, and it was kind of comfort to get back into the corridors. So I like the idea of like a sequel being like on a expanding in scale a little bit, but still being having that contained claustrophobic feel of you stuck in an isolated base or colony on the surface of like some barren remote moon or whatever.
Gary, if I remember rightly, Gary Napper had actually talked about wanting to do an Alien 3 kind of take on isolation.
Yeah.
Well, Lucy says in the chat here, other homage DLCs were a missed opportunity, honestly. Aliens and Alien 3. I mean, I think everybody thought Newt would be a shoe-in, but again, thinking this is Gary Napper, said that it felt cruel. They thought about it, but it felt cruel as a thing to have you play as a child going through the torment that Amanda does.
There's a
It's funny that, yeah,
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, for Alien 3, like, I don't know if any of you played the Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay, which was a brilliant
Yes.
stealth game, and that was, I like the idea of like that had a good mix of stealth and sneaking around, but also like talking to inmates and doing prison life moments, and like sort of trading stuff and bartering, and like having a bit of that feeling of like being, so I can't, like, you know, like in Alien 3 when it's with all the prisoners and their different personalities. I like the idea of like a game that's like that. It's like, I feel like Alien 3 and Escape from Butcher Bay, some kind of combination that would really work.
Yeah, that could definitely be interesting if they expand the complexity of the human part of the game.
So they don't just either shoot you or stand and stare into space.
Although hearing the dialogue is nice sometimes, again, as part of that world building.
It's usually like despair and like sort of lines of despair as they're sat, you know, with their head in their hands. Like it does create a really bleak ambience.
But then again, there is a sadistic thrill to throwing a noisemaker into a group of. I'm just gonna pop out for a second, guys. I'll be right back.
So this is an odd thing to remember, but before the game came out, they had these like developer diaries, and I specifically recall this hall segment, and the floor was different. It was like green and highly reflective. So I don't know if they changed that to make it more optimized or whatever. But I always liked the look of this hallway before. I think you can still see what I'm talking about if you watch that old developer diary.
Yeah, I know what you mean, actually. Yeah, I wonder if that was like, yeah, maybe it was performance was taking a dip or something, but I think that this part of the station is really well designed, actually, in terms of lighting, and that this these sort of moving storage things are quite cool as well. There's a lot of interesting world building here.
This was when I also discovered the key to the friendly Joes. The eyes.
Yeah, the eyes. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know that for my first playthrough, and there was times when I spent ages sneaking around a working Joe, and then the second playthrough I was like, his eyes were white. I didn't have to do that. That's a waste of time. It doesn't tell you that though, which, you know, I think that's cool. You shouldn't be told everything. It's good to find stuff out by yourself. That was one of the Nostromo logs in the gas room. It's weird. It's got that slight element of Metroidy backtracking. Like, there's a certain point in the game where you've got all the gadgets and you can like run around the station, getting into rooms you couldn't get into before. What did you guys think of the Nostromo logs with the original cast?
It's always fun to have like the original actors back, but I mean, there was nothing earth-shattering about any of them, if I remember rightly. But it was another one of those slight smile on your face.
Yeah.
hearing some new dialogue from these very memorable voices and memorable characters that, if you're a fan who's gone back and if you're a big enough fan of Alien to have gone back and backtracked all the bits and pieces to
Yeah.
get them all, there's an appreciation there for revisiting them. And I don't think they could have done anything earth-shattering with it, to be fair, just by the nature of it being, stuff that they're recording before they're all dying and what have you.
You get a sense from the way they're written that they maybe were told to like avoid any like big character revelations, whatever, for these. It's all quite,
Yes.
plays it quite safe in terms of the content.
But then it's like, I think the real big emotional treat and core of the game is hearing Sigourney Weaver doing her genuinely new bits. The recording when Amanda actually gets to hear the log, that is such a cathartic moment and a worthwhile moment, because I remember when the game was first announced and we knew, announced officially, and we knew that Amanda was going to be the protagonist, and everybody's like, well, why the fuck is Amanda the protag here? Burke said that she lived an uneventful life, and we can hand wave away all we want, about Burke lying and everything, but ultimately it's when you hear Ripley record that amendment to the log and give Amanda a message where it's like, this is the core of the game, this is why it was worthwhile that Amanda was the protag.
Yeah, it's a great moment hearing like new dialogue spoken by Sigourney Weaver and sounding exactly like she did in 1979. Like, that's a real special moment. I think the rest of the cast were like, a lot of them like hadn't acted in years, so I think Will Porter said they didn't have much time with them and they were a bit rusty. So like, it's not like they could spend like weeks perfecting everything. But I mean, it's just great that they got him. Like, I think Tom Skerritt sounds exactly the same as well. So hearing him reading out a log as Dallas, that was really cool. His voice has not changed.
No, it was always old and rough.
Yeah.
I need a compression cylinder.
I think the Joes are a fantastic addition to the franchise as well.
I was really hoping one would turn up in a new movie. I was like, that would be great. That's such a, I love that. I love the rubbery, emotionless faces and like the idea that they're like the cheap knockoff androids.
I like the material bunching at the back of the neck as well.
Yeah, that's a great detail.
Mm.
When you whack them with the wrench, you really feel like you're smacking a piece of like rubber. It's really satisfying.
I do like how the concept has reappeared in other media, though, like in Fireteam Elite and in Dark Descent, and we get to see different iterations of the Joes, like more advanced ones that are part of your squad, or in Dark Descent, ones that are not quite as rudimentary, but still have that blank, expressionless look. So yeah, it was a great addition to the universe, I thought.
It makes sense as well. There are going to be budget forms of all property.
You can save that guy from burning if you really want, if you turn the power off.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I only found that at my most recent playthrough.
What? So, how would I?
Pretty sure there's. I can't remember how you do it exactly, but I'm pretty sure you can turn the power off. Yeah.
I imagine it'd be one of the little things on the wall, where you open them up and redistribute the power.
It doesn't actually change anything though. I think it's just if you want to not watch them burn.
I'll see if I can
One
find
of the few
it,
friendly ones.
so I know for next time.
Now I'm doubting myself. I'm pretty sure you can disable it, but
I think you mentioned it in the book.
yeah. Hopefully I wasn't wrong in the book as well.
So one of the things you sort of lamented in the book, and it's something I always bring up as well, is, you mentioned Rinsla's making of Aliens. And it's a genuine shame that we don't get that kind of look at the making of games.
Yeah.
As a game journo, as a game fan, well, a former game journo, sorry, as a game fan, does that not annoy the shit out of you?
Oh yeah, it's incredibly disappointing. Like, it, I think there's been a few like Half-Life Raising the Bar, which is a great book, is one of the few where the developers have really poured tons of development stuff. There was a book about the original Halo as well that's full of great production material. But yeah, it's an underserved thing. I think the stories behind the making of games and the concept material and everything is like as interesting as anything. And when I worked on PC Gamer, I wrote a lot of making of features where like I spoke to like the writers of The Witcher about the narrative and stuff like that. And I always loved writing that, and it was always really interesting. But that was like for a 2,000-word article on a website. I would love to pick apart a game like Rinslow's book. Like Rinslow's book is for me like the peak of that kind of telling a story, creation of something. I'd love to do that for a video game, but yeah, I guess there's a lot of. It's probably the same in movie studios, but especially with game development, there's tons of NDAs and red tape, and developers can't say certain things, or so it's quite hard to like wrangle all the right permissions and people. But yeah, I think people would go, if there was some like really dense book like the Rinslow book about some big video game, like people would love it, but it's just not happened yet for whatever reason.
Was there ever any temptation to attempt, or was the goal always, look, I can't do that? And I loved your, you're setting the expectations early on with this is going to be akin to the, companion to X-Files. I think you said specifically X-Files.
Yeah.
Was there ever any temptation to try to see what you could wrangle in terms of a making of? Or was it always I know this is not going to fucking fly.
Yeah. When it first came to writing it, I did approach Sega, and I thought the original pitch for the book was more of a Rinsler style making of. But when I started talking to Sega, and then they were like, "You're gonna have to talk to Disney," I just thought, I don't want to have to machete my way through so much red tape to write this book, which would also limit what I could say about it, because there are, I want to be critical of the game as well, and not just a fawning like, this is the best thing ever. There's a few making of books you can tell are kind of studio approved, and they've got no like edge to them. There was a famous one for David Lynch's Dune, famously one of the most troubled productions in cinema history, and I've got a making of book that was released at the time, and it's full of nothing but praise about the majesty of the production, and it's like it's such a piece of PR. So I mean, it was just I just didn't want to have to deal with having a back and forth with the rights owners and stuff. If you write an unofficial book, you can say what you want. It does limit you in some ways, and you can't tell the full story. But I was like, it's a fan book, it's written it's not an officially sanctioned thing, and that does give you a lot of freedom because you can write what you want. Whereas if I wrote something, Disney looked at it and went, "Oh, you can't say that," I'd be like, I've worked with, as a journalist, you sort of deal with like NDAs and stuff, and you can't speak about this, you can't speak about that, and I was like, I don't want to enter that world. I just want to write what I want. So yeah, that was a lot easier just to make it unofficial.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's a problem I've run into over the years as well. The amount of people on isolation I've approached to ask to come on the show, and it's been I can't, NDAs, or my current studio won't let me talk about old games I worked on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Jesus, this is not a fun.
Yeah.
This is not a fun industry to be on the other side of here.
Yeah, I've encountered a lot of that as well, and that's why that was part of the reason I was like, I would have loved to sit down with all the developers. I've interviewed a lot of the development team over the years, and I've had pints with a few of them, and they've told me stuff off the record, which obviously I didn't put in the book because that would be bad form. But I still feel like I've talked to him quite a bit, but not in any kind of like sit down for 2 hours and really dig into the making of the game. And from what I've heard, the development process was hard as well, and it's quite grueling in places, such as the nature of game dev. So, well, that's them put to sleep.
I suppose maybe I should have gone with the more non-lethal method there.
Is this the Android fluid? I think the idea is that all those things are like full of Android fluid. That's a cool piece of like alien world building. Like, here's where they make the milky fluid for the androids, and it's hanging up on racks like meat in a butcher's shop or something.
I was surprised they
You
didn't
can
see
tell
me
they had fun
there.
with that stuff.
I think that might have been like a bug or something because they weren't really reacting.
Not being seen as an art form thing. Mr. Snaztastic says even Rinsler's work on Star Wars still had to be approved by Lucas. It's why Marcia Lucas doesn't appear much in there.
I haven't read his Star Wars books actually.
Nah, me either. I'm not interested. But the Alien ones are just fantastic. Just absolutely fantastic.
I think that the account of the filming of the chestburster scene is like one of the best things I've read in one of those books. It's so vivid, like you feel like you're there on the set being splattered with fake blood.
It's a shame because didn't he say he wanted to do Alien 3 and the studio was like, no, we're not interested.
Oh, that hurts to think about, that we could have had a book by him about that, but
Yep.
yeah. I like that Sigourney was defending Alien 3 recently.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. Maybe one day David Fincher will get over it. And
Never gonna happen. Never gonna happen.
It was nice to see Isolation get a bit of recognition again recently, just by way of a new physical release by Limited Run for the Switch, having that big collector set, and like I have a little model of the Sevastopol station on my desk that came with it. I mostly got it for that, but some of the other goodies were really cool too.
yeah, that's a nice presentation. That I feel like they've done a good job of keeping it playable. A lot of good games like will be kind of forgotten about and never ported to other platforms, whereas you can play this in a higher frame rate on Xbox, and you can play it on Switch and mobile, and a really good mobile port as well. Like they've done a good job of like keeping it playable. It's not one of those games that fades into obscurity and you have to buy old hardware to play it.
Yeah, they sent us the game, or Feral did, on mobile before release, and so I got to play through it for a review before it came out, and I was just blown away by how well it ran on my iPhone and my iPad, and I gave it a 10 out of 10 because I was like, well, the game, we already gave it a 9 out of 10, but you've impressed me that much more by how well it's running on this hardware.
I can't remember what did I knock it down for? Because I didn't give it a perfect score, but
You gave it a 9 out of 10, I think.
I ran into some bugs, which I think knocked it down for me. Because I think at the time there was some major stability issues on like the older generation.
Yeah, I remember the Hive bit had a couple issues on PS4.
There's a lot of reflections there, like in the sort of flooded floor, and
Where am I supposed to
particle effects.
go? Oh, I think I'm supposed to go to the police station. That's right.
That is another addition to the lore that needs to be played with a lot more.
The Colonial
The
Marshals,
Colonial Marshals, yeah. M projects, I'm talking PS3 and 360.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
There was major issues on those from what I remember. Caleb says, I assume he's talking about Rinsler here. I thought it was that he said he didn't like it, so didn't care to make a book about it. No, I'm certain Adam's right, that Rinsler was interested in doing it, but Fox weren't. Or studios, I suppose, at that point. I wonder if they're going to go back to being defensive over Alien 3.
It seems after Romulus we're in a period of everything just being reevaluated, I guess.
Yeah.
What did you think of all the isolation influence on Romulus, Andy?
Yeah, I got a real buzz out of that. I mean, parts of when they were on the station and like the disembodied voice was like announcing stuff, I was like, it felt very Sevastopol to me, and it was cool. Like I would have liked more of it, but that's my own particular sickness of obsessing over this game. But yeah, it was nice to see. I always consider like Isolation as part, as worthy a part of the Alien universe as the movie. So it was good to see a nod in there to that.
I very much liked the television, not television, Aaron, the telephone booths.
Yeah.
From the very first moments we saw those in the set pictures, that's an appreciation of the wider universe that you just gotta love.
Yeah.
And I think that was a Matt Savage inclusion. It was something he suggested that made its way all on onto the set design.
I like the hand cranked generator as well, like being
Yes.
a replica of the one from the game. That was nice. I was doing my Leonardo DiCaprio pointing gif at that in the cinema.
It had a very similar sound as well, so I think they
Yeah.
took the sound for that one. And I noticed a really deep cut here, but when Rain is
You and
talking
the
to
boogie
Tyler,
sound effect.
yeah, I know, because we heard it so much, man. We played that game so much when we were teens, but when Rain is talking to Tyler on her video watch, you hear a couple like bleep bloops and stuff, and I believe they're from the AVP2 video game, like the menu select noise. And I was like, if they took that from there, because I don't think that was taken from the older films for that game, that would make me very happy. But
Do you have?
sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
No, it's fine. You got 'em.
Well, now you got me curious. So you,
Well, I was just gonna ask Andy if he has any fondness for the other games to the same sort of intensity as you do Isolation.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Alien in general, like I love the whole Alien universe, but I'm very much an original movie guy. And in terms of Alien games, I think Isolation is the only one that's grabbed me as much. I think, yeah, I can't think of. I don't think any of them, even the best ones, are even close to how much I love this one. Purely because a lot of them are. I mean, I like Aliens, but I don't love Aliens as much as Aliens. So a lot of the games being rooted in Aliens means that I'm naturally not as inclined towards them. But yeah, I think Isolation for me is like galaxies ahead of any of the others, and I've not played the others nearly as many times, I should say, that as Isolation.
I think
I liked Alien 3 on the SNES.
oh, that's an old one.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting how many versions of that game came out. Like, you had the arcade game of Alien 3, you had the Genesis version, you had the SNES version. I think there was like a Sega Game Gear version as well.
Yeah.
So
There was a Game Boy one as well, which was like a top-down kind of exploration thing, and it had like a happy ending where Ripley just gets back in the in the escape pod and lives happily ever after.
I can't figure out how to friggin' play that game on the Game Boy. I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, there's I think in London, in Loading Bar, they just got a full cabinet of Alien 3 The Gun, which was the
Oh, nice.
light gun shooter.
Yeah.
When I was there, it wasn't powered up, but I've been assured that next time it will be. I want to play that because I've heard good things about it.
yeah, there's an arcade bar I've gone to in Los Angeles that has a fully working and nicely maintained version, and I was super happy to finally get to play it.
Yeah.
I do wonder. I know there's been rumors about a remaster.
Trifles as well.
What was that, Aaron?
I think I'm dropping out. I think. Were you?
I just got the last bit of that.
So I think there's something more appealing about them having pulse rifle light guns on those cabs. It's why I prefer Extermination over Armageddon. And I know Alien 3 The Gun also had the pulse rifle.
Yeah. Just feels good in your hand, doesn't it? Chunky.
Still collating says the marshals are criminally underused. They are the perfect blend and compromise between the action. Somebody who can stand up to the creatures and not die right away, but still have the fragility of the civilians.
It was an early version of the game had like riot cop colonial marshals, and their armor was kind of extracted visually from the precious that's from the original film, with the kind of samurai armor elements. But they were taken out for some reason. But in the Marshal Bureau there's one of the suits like propped up on a wall somewhere.
Yeah,
It's like a little legacy of that. Yeah,
Sin
would
Waits'
be cool to
office,
see them.
isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame they took them out. I like the idea of like that would have made the humans more interesting if there was. I think there are some riot cops with like helmets on, but I like the idea of like more of a kind of elite human type enemy to fight. But
Yeah. Just a bit of variety. But then again, I suppose the Siegs and security enemies kind of fill that void.
yeah, just not as visually interesting. They kind of look they're kind of under designed. Them they look just like sort of riot cops from like the 80s or
Anything.
something. They don't look very
Yeah.
sci-fi. Whereas, yeah,
No, that's fair. There was some chat about the AVP2 sound effect as well, Adam. M Project says it's totally the same sound. I confirmed it. Caustic Viper says, I had just rewatched Romulus a few days ago, Adam, and I picked up on the AVP2 sound.
Nice. Well, that is awesome then. Yeah, I bet with the riot cops or Weyland Yutani soldiers or whoever they were supposed to be, like, I'm sure they were worried with the reception of Colonial Marines. Such a big criticism of that game was you fought too many humans and you weren't dealing with the aliens enough. But Lucy, what I was going to say about the remaster was I believe this game got a pretty good boost of player count after Romulus, more so than any of the other Alien games. And so you have to imagine Disney or Sega would see that and want to capitalize off of it with a remaster.
But this is where we see next month if those rumours had any weight behind them, because that was one of the things that was supposedly coming, wasn't it? A remaster.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I feel about that, because I really wouldn't want them to take this and like drape it in all the sort of modern visual flourishes of like modern game engines for the sake of it, and just put loads of reflections everywhere and redo the textures. But then like ray tracing in this could be potentially interesting, because it's such a game that plays around with light in interesting ways. But then maybe it would lose some of its character. Like the lighting in this game is so distinctive to the cathode engine. I wouldn't want them to like mess with the art too much, just to like make it run better and maybe look a bit sharper around the edges. But I really don't want them to meddle with it.
I agree with you.
Much.
It should have the same aesthetic feel. I know some remasters, they'll have a thing where you can just toggle between the old and new graphics, but the graphics still look so good in this game that, I don't think you need a drastic overhaul. Like, just 4K, 60 FPS on modern consoles, maybe a VR mode a little bit down the line, because that was the part of the rumors. They were going to add a VR mode, like, next year so as to not cannibalize off Rogue Incursion. Because that functionality, the VR functionality, like you were saying, is already partially built in the game, just wasn't really finished. So I think that's something that could be a really good selling point for it. And they said the same thing with like Resident Evil Village. Like, hey, we're going to add a VR, or Resident Evil Village and Resident Evil 4 remake. We're going to add a VR mode down the road a bit. So I think they could do the same thing. I would like some more advanced graphical features, like ray tracing, like you were saying, I think could work well in this game. Like, I think Last of Us was a good example when they did a remake of, well, kind of remaster, somewhere in there, of the first game. And it very much maintained the same feel, but the fidelity was really boosted.
Yeah, it looked like it looked in your head when you played it on PS3. Like they kind of caught up with your mind's eye view of what that game looked like. But the nightmare scenario would be, I don't know if you played the Halo remaster, where
it was
completely changed the atmosphere of certain parts that we back to the old visuals, and the lighting would be completely different. It would be not as, there'd be like a moody, claustrophobic part of the world would suddenly be brightly lit for some reason. And it's just like that's the nightmare scenario.
Halo 2 did a better job than
Halo. That was that was beautiful looking, Halo 2. But that first one, it's not the problem with the increase of fidelity, but when you're changing art and disrupting decisions that the art director made in the original, then that's when you're entering blasphemous territory. You gotta respect the art.
Yeah, definitely.
officially VR mode that was rumored.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd be more excited over that than a remaster, just a bog standard remaster.
because I think one was found on some NVIDIA Shield like games list. There was like a title card for Alien Isolation VR version or something.
Is this separate to the recent rumors?
Yeah, this was a while ago. Oh shoot.
The flares become so useful in like the last half of the game. Like I feel like
Yeah.
I'm constantly throwing flares, like more than using anything else.
I did not mean for it to bounce there. Oh boy. How about I give you guys another flare? Yeah, that's the one. That's the ticket.
I like how at the start, like Axel, when he's giving you a kind of disguised tutorial, he's like hand waving why the survivors are so aggressive. He's like, you know, they've been driven mad by the, you know, the crisis. They'll shoot on sight, but it still feels a bit too cartoonishly aggressive. Like,
Yeah.
hey, look, it's a survivor. Let's shoot them to death. Like, what's that got to do with them? Yeah, like surely no one would be driven to like that kind of level of inhumanity by an incident like this, but.
I don't know. I can kind of see a lot of selfish tribalism going off.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can have
And if
the
they've already been
alien.
stuck on this station for years, this decommissioned, miserable station for like 10 years, maybe they are meant to
Yeah.
be fragile.
Maybe I can have the alien take care of these guys. But I don't know if the alien shows up here at this sequence, no matter what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it here.
I can never remember how to trigger it, but there was one cool moment I liked where, and I'm hoping I'm not making this isn't one of those false memories, but where you could see the alien above like one of the transit cars.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that.
Uh-oh.
What do you mean whilst
Alright,
you're in
good.
it?
No, is you're about to go in it.
Ah, right. Oh, yeah, I've never seen that, but I mean, who knows with this game? Like
Hidden alien.
there's some cool bits towards the end where you see them just at the corner of your eye, creeping. Like when you're doing the spacewalk, and you're at to enable the comms thing, you can see a
Yeah,
few of them
you
crawling on the
can-
station. Just very,
Yeah.
a lot of people will miss it. I like that, like some little subtle moments like that.
I'm gonna have to go through some of these Easter egg videos to see if I can find it now, just to make sure I'm not bullshitting. So let's bring back up the chat. So, what we missed? Number 9 says, "What mods would you be interested in for the game? Is there anything?"
An
you'd
official
like to see?
photo mode, for sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, definitely. In terms of gameplay mods, though, I feel like yeah, it's pretty good as is. There's some interesting ones like plonking more aliens in and stuff, but yeah, I think it's pretty bang on as it is. I think yeah, definitely a photo mode would be amazing instead of having to use weird creaky debug modes that people have hacked in.
You're talking to an avid user of one of those, Adam. Was it a couple of weeks ago you did a photo mode stream?
Yeah. Even though this isn't an FPS game, it has its FPS moments, and I do appreciate that. It reminds me of the first Mirror's Edge, where you're really not supposed to have gunfights, but when you do, it's kind of unique. Yeah, if the alien's not showing up here, he's not meant to.
That's telling you to just hide in the fucking locker, they'll just leave.
So is this off to the Marshal's Bureau, which is then when you get your the beacon flashback, isn't it?
Yes, which is one of my favorite parts of the game.
Yeah. So it's such a like gift from Creative Assembly, just to like let's just recreate that sequence and let you do it through the helmet of someone there.
Yeah.
Like, didn't have to do it, but I had some criticism at the time of like, oh, it's just repeating a moment from Alien. It's like, well, yeah, because we want to experience that. Like, I don't think that's a negative thing.
Yeah, that's like fan service done right.
And I like that they added an extra element by showing you the beacon. And I like how Creative Assembly, when they were designing the beacon, like took elements from like a bunch of other Geiger designs and sort of stuck them together, so it felt like consistent visually. And I think it's kind of canon, I guess, that the crew of the Anisadora shut off the beacon.
I think
Which
it
is,
works
yeah,
out timeline-wise as well with Romulus.
Yeah.
One of the things I always love is just looking at the signage and graphic design of this game. Even something as simple as like this magazine, which you're not really, most players probably won't look at. Just seeing the page design there, and how, like this one has the.
I've never seen that one before with Ransom's face scrubbed out and scum written over it. That's a new one to me.
Where?
That's cool.
Where was it?
The one you were just looking at, it's got Ransom's face on it, and it's kind of scrubbed out, and someone's written scum. That one there, on the magazine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I see. I guess he had a feature about him or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this looks like the Anisadora there, the ship model.
Oh yeah. Yeah, which they base it on like crustaceans or something. It's such a shame you don't really see it in the game because the concept art where it looks like a big shellfish is kind of cool.
Yeah. And all the advertisements are just so good. Like the cigarettes, the vodka, the sleeping pills.
I find myself... I just get distracted.
Yeah.
I guess I should probably save again.
What do we think of the man you're saving?
Oh, I think it's great. It harkens back to that old school survival horror feel, especially with something like Resident Evil and the ink ribbons. So it connected with me a lot. I think on the easier difficulties, you do just have those normal checkpoints too, so it's not too punishing. But yeah, when you're playing it on hard, you're very reliant on those, and I think it's just an extra increase of the tension.
Yeah, definitely. I can see why some people might find it frustrating, and I say this as somebody who doesn't actually like stealth games. I've never liked Splinter Cell or Metal Gear Solid or anything like that, but there's just something about this game's immersion that makes me not care about it. And I actually appreciate the difficulty of the game because it feels so alien in its difficulty and its harshness and punishingness. And it just adds a whole other level of that tension, of that horror.
This the save point in the bureau always says hostiles nearby, even though there's no enemies, which some people have said is like a subtle reference to Marshall Waits. But I just think it's just a mistake. I don't know.
Interesting. Yep, it says it. That's cool. I could see
I like
that.
the wanted posters here as well. They're clearly like the developers done in like ASCII.
Mr. Snaztastic says the derelict kills the pacing though. It's 20 minutes of near silent walking. What do you think about that?
Nah, I think for a game like this that has so much intensity, it's great to have those moments where you don't have to worry about that. It would be too much otherwise. And I think that level is just a great atmospheric moment where you don't need to worry about dealing with the alien.
My mother was on the Nostromo when it went missing 15 years ago.
It's great because it is so atmospheric as well, though. Yes, it might be a pacing stopping and
They sure as hell found something.
not being quite as intense, but it's
I need a way out of here, Ripley.
a breath of fresh air in a good way.
I want to know everything.
Yeah, I always look forward to this bit. Like, yeah, it's just a nice like change of pace. There's two moments of like relief in the game. There's this, and there's the part where you blast the alien out of Gemini exoplanet solutions, and then you know that you can run around with your shotgun and like just enjoy the catharsis of not having to sneak around for a while. I think those are the two moments that provide a bit of relief from the constant tension.
Still collating brought up something. So there's this YouTube video that shows all these hidden locations of the xenomorph. Like you can see one crawling on the outside of the station or one in an event. And there was one where he points out the alien on top of a train car as you're going into it. So I was always like looking for it, but I think it was just a mistake and it was just piping above the train car.
Sorry, you dropped out for me then. What did you say about the train car?
There was a YouTube video that showed like hidden xenomorph locations in the game, like some moments where one's crawling outside the station or one's crawling through a side vent and you can kind of see it. And it showed, oh, there's a xenomorph just sitting and waiting on the transit car as you enter, but it wasn't really. It was just pipes, but it was obscured by smoke. So I was always looking for it because I think that's a cool idea. Like, what if one of the times you randomly enter the transit system, there's just an alien just sitting on top of the car like that? That would be a cool visual.
I think M Project mentioned they definitely saw it on like Mission 17 earlier. We need to set up and convince Aaron to do a stream or a pre-recorded video of my Alien Isolation modded challenge playthroughs. Multiple aliens and so much more. God, it sounds horrific. When you get thrown two aliens at once in the later parts of the game, I was like, holy fuck, how am I going to deal with this?
What did you think about that rug pull in general? Like
I loved it.
Yeah, the idea of there's not just one of them, there's many.
Well, so it's like I was saying earlier, you know, that moment when the door opens and you see the hive, and then I was like, oh, I have not got the energy in me to deal with this right now. You know, going through there and realizing that there was a hive, and then when you see them crawling up the reactor, once you've set off the purge.
Yeah, that's great. I love that scene.
It's just an absolute intensity ramp, and again, it's all part of that feel of the difficulty of the game, and it feels earned, but it also doesn't feel impossible when you're actually, you know, facing up against them. It's a bit of a mental component to it.
Yeah, I think you're right, Greg. There's not an alien on any of the transit cars. He was just seeing one there when there wasn't one there. But I do think it would have been cool if they would have put one there.
I like that moment towards, near the end where you board the Anisadora, and there's like a piece of like random sci-fi machinery that some level artist has made look just like his alien's head. Don't know if you remember that. Well, like you'll be in the darkness and your flashlight will catch it, and it's got the kind of curved head and stuff dripping from it.
I
It's
know
like
what you're talking about.
that's such a clever little. Just makes you kind of stop in your tracks for a moment.
I do wish we could have explored the Anisadora a bit more on that sequence, because it was very abrupt. Just the shuttle ride over there from the medical center, and then once you're on the ship, it's really just industrial hallway, and then we see the reactor, but that's it. Like, we don't get to go to the bridge or any other parts of the ship, so I do wish there was a bit more there, but I'm sure they had a tight budget with this one.
Yeah, that felt like a victim of the narrative cuts, especially when there's so much great concept art of the interior of the Anisadora in the art book. Like they'd really thought about what it would look like, but it's clearly just cobbled together from like existing assets. You don't really feel like you've gone somewhere else as much as you should.
Although I think some of the engineering corridors look distinctive enough.
Yeah, they've changed enough, like, so it's not completely the same, but yeah, like they clearly had a much grander vision for like what this kind of dilapidated salvage ship would look like, but I guess but
I'm a lover of walking simulators, though, when the atmosphere is great. But I understand the position. Gusty Viper says, I think the derelict moment is great because we personally are given an opportunity to investigate it ourselves and get an in-universe perspective of the scale of it all. It feels more haunting in first person, to be honest. Yeah, especially when you're not having to blast your way through it.
Yeah, like in Colonial Marines.
AVP Classic or AVP 2 or Alien Trilogy.
it's nice when you go in and you see like the remains of the Nostromo expedition, like the winch and stuff. That's a nice little piece of connectivity with the film.
Ah, but that's one of those little continuity gaffes. They
Yeah.
took it back with them for the stretcher. But no, I like it. It's visual shorthand, isn't it? And I
Yeah.
wave that away, but they like the little boxes as well with the Nostromo logo on it. That's cool.
Yeah. I like that they made the space jockey chamber like bigger, because I feel like I said in the book, like I feel like if Ridley Scott had the space and budget, he would have made it as big as it is in the game. But he had to use his kids in tiny spacesuits to make it look bigger. It's cool that the game goes, let's just crank up the scale of it because we can, because it's polygons and we've got as many as we want of them. I don't mind that change.
Yeah, it kind of looked how we remember it in the movie. So it didn't feel out of place or anything. It just felt like you got to see more of the room that you didn't get to see in the movie.
There's just something that will always be mesmerizing about the space jockey ship and Giga's designs here.
It's lost none of its power, which is incredible considering we've all seen it a million times from every angle, but it still feels like it's still just drenched in mystery and like, yeah, so good.
Would you like to see a sequel sort of lean more into that aesthetic, into the prequels a bit more, if they were to be in isolation too?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the prequels, and I'm becoming more of a fan with every viewing and every year that rolls by. Like I rewatched Prometheus and Covenant recently and just had a great time. Like I personally love the engineers and that whole concept, so I'd be very happy to like explore more of those environments and stuff. But I know that's not everyone loves that stuff. But yeah, I feel like this the first games covered this stuff quite well. It'd be good to see some other.
We've sort of skirted around you mentioning you'd seen it, but did you enjoy it?
Is that Romulus? Sorry, did you say?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I did. I went on opening day in an empty theater in York and sat and watched it at 11 a.m. because I was like, I want to see it as soon as it's available. And yeah, I had a really good time. There's bits I didn't love, but there's plenty I did. So I think I'm looking forward to rewatching it. I'm waiting patiently for it to appear on Apple TV so I can watch it in 4K at home. But yeah.
I think one of the things for me about this sequence I really liked is just it felt like such a faithful recreation of the biomechanical vibe of the derelict in that original film. Like it didn't feel like they were trying to make it fit with what we saw in Prometheus, like maybe Colonial Marines did a bit. And I can appreciate that as well. Like when I played Aliens Fireteam Elite, I thought it was awesome that they recreated the that chamber with the giant head as well as the jockey chamber as it looked in Prometheus. They did a great job recreating that. But for Isolation, it just feels like it did in the first Alien completely. And I feel like if they were to introduce more prequel, because Isolation is one of the few projects now that's completely divorced from the prequels. And I feel like with an Isolation sequel, if they were to introduce more prequel elements, it would be pretty risky of alienating, no pun intended, some of the fans of the original.
Adam's our resident prequel disliker.
I love hate them. Like I still watch them, and there's things about them I really like. It was just a lot of, honestly, it was some of the lore implications and their depictions of the space jockey. I feel like it fundamentally just harmed the mystery of that ship and that character.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I've kind of slowly gotten over it, but when I first saw Prometheus, I was quite annoyed by. I think anything that removes mystery from any universe, I find a negative, basically most of the time. But I think I'm slowly getting over it with Prometheus, just because I really enjoy that film, as flawed as it is.
Yeah, and there's like, I loved it as a standalone sci-fi film. As an Alien prequel, I had problems with it, but there's things like just the production design is incredible. The spaceship design is really cool. I love the ominous feel that it has, and so as a sci-fi movie, it works for me. It was just as an Alien prequel from what I expected from Ridley Scott after so long. It was just like what? But I mean, that comes down to my own expectations, and I am curious to see if they will continue the prequels after the success of Romulus. I'm seeing a lot of chatter about that they should just let Ridley finish it.
I hope not.
And I find
I
that
want to see what David's been up to with those colonists.
yeah,
No.
I find that amusing that the people that defend the prequels don't want another one because they know where it's gonna go,
I know where.
and I want it to go there too.
No, you only do out of spite.
But yeah.
Leighton said, Alien Isolation's derelict level is the best representation by far as the games go.
Yeah.
Mr. Snaztastic says the fog in this area is mesmerizing, the way it swirls around.
Like
the beacon here is cobbled together from like parts of like the jockey's seat and like other things from the derelict, which I thought was really clever.
Yeah, that bit at the top's just the gooey console bit.
Yeah, and these little lights here, like, they could have made this look just like Prometheus here if they wanted, but they didn't. Like, even this random grate here is just so weird. Like,
they had the mist as well. I like the kind of egg mist. They had a little homage to that as well.
I kind of wish we'd got to explore a bit more, but I totally get why it was as not quite as extensive.
A few more antechambers with stuff in would have been welcome, but so now that we're about to descend into the egg storage thing, I've never really decided or read a kind of definitive answer about whether the egg chamber is in a cave under the derelict or in the derelict. I'm sure that's a hotly debated thing, but what do you think?
that is an old school debate. I've always thought it was just a cargo chamber in the ship itself, and the ship had crashed kind of deep into the ground, and so it goes down a bit further than we realized. That's what made sense to me, rather than a ship, like, I guess either trying to dock with a facility or randomly crashing into a cave that happened to have these things. To me, it always just made more sense that this was a hole to the ship that we just didn't see from the surface.
That's what I always assumed for years, and then I read someone saying, what if it's a cave? And I was like, yeah, what if it is? But it doesn't really matter, does it? It's just interesting to think about.
Consider. Yeah, it's one of those questions that I've never felt a strong response to either way.
Certainly looks like
Yeah.
we're descending into a cave here, though.
So
But it's how the aesthetic matches the derelict so much that it's kind of like, yeah, well, maybe it is just a part of the ship. Maybe it is a bit of TARDIS magic going off that the space jockeys have access to. But then also on the flip side of that is, I mean, when I'm talking older days of my fandom here, I used to be like, well, maybe that's all alien resin in some way. You know, maybe that's the alien architecture rather than the ship itself, and they've hived it up. But then again,
do you see? Sorry, do you see when it was when we were descending down the tunnel there? There was like stalagmites, or stalactites, whichever one it is. Do you see them in the film, or were they added? Is that creative assembly filling in the blanks there? I can't remember.
I think you do see a bit of them.
Yeah.
And I mean, you could just chalk that up to it's a biomechanical ship, so it's kind of grown. So when acid eats through it, it's not like acid eating through just a bunch of metal and tech and stuff. But yeah, I do feel like I remember that in the movie, that it has that kind of look about it.
This is great. This recreation of the mist.
Yeah.
That.
I liked that they actually added the laser into the other pits as well.
Yeah.
Because that was always something that, I mean, it's such a small detail, but it's a detail about the film that always kind of bothered me. Because coincidentally, it always happens to be the one pit that they go into. But then, I mean, one of the other, just to go back to the question about, is it a cave, is it part of the ship? Another thing I'd thought about was perhaps it's a base. It's just a jockey base that it docks onto. Which explains, the same architecture. Still collating says, are we sure they're stalagmites, not just melted rock and metal? That's the way I took the detail to be, personally.
They look kind of like if you've seen pictures of the Titanic wreck, those rusticles where the bacteria eats the metal and it drips down like that. So like it could be something like that. Bacteria eating away at the ship. Oh, that's the
those
that's the
suits,
suits. Yeah. Like how the helmet's based on the helmet, the kind of emergency helmet from the Nostromo bridge as well. I never noticed that. One that the computer lights flicker on.
Well, we are coming up on 2 hours here, Aaron. Did you want to wrap it up, or?
Yeah, we're probably not going to make it through a mission quickly, are we?
That was a good point to end on, the beacon. I enjoyed just watching that.
Yeah.
Never get tired of that.
So
So,
yeah, you go for it, Aaron.
Andy, people can still buy the book at the minute, and that's
Yeah.
all through Unbound. It's not available on any of the other
Let's hope this
retailers.
No, yeah, it's all over the place. You can get it.
Hope you're right.
organismbook.com, that comes straight from the publisher, but otherwise, yeah, you can get it from a lot of bookshops in the UK, like Waterstones and W.H. Smith, and when it comes out in the US officially in September, it'll be on Target and Walmart and everything. It's basically everywhere. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
And people can find you on. Is it just Twitter, or did you have a website? I can't remember.
Yeah, no, just on Twitter at Ultra Brilliant. Well, yeah, I talk about Alien Isolation quite a lot. I'm talking about Star Wars Outlaws a lot at the moment, which I'm really enjoying. But yeah, generally it's just me talking about Alien all the time.
I can completely understand that desire.
Yeah.
But no, thank you for joining us. Thank you for talking about Alien with us. And if there's folk out there on the chat who didn't back the book, and who are interested in reading Andy's companion, go check it out. Go pick it up. I think it was like normal price, like $20 for the hardback. I think if I remember rightly. So
I think it's
fairly
like 14 quid or something now, but yeah.
Number 9 asks Amazon. So do you know if it's planned to come out on Amazon? I believe I saw a pre-order there for the US one.
Yeah, you can buy it from. It's currently on sale on Amazon UK, but yeah, I think there's a pre-order link on Amazon US for the ebook and the hardback, so you can get it digitally as well if you don't want to
oh,
buy the physical thing for a bit cheaper. I think it's like half the price to buy the ebook.
But yeah, thank you again so much for joining us. Hopefully we can have you back on October time, and maybe we'll actually have some news to talk about with this title. That would be fun.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure to talk about this game, and now I just really want to replay it myself, so I might actually start it tonight.
Nice.
I'm on. Which reminds me, guys,
Sorry,
Bill's
you
out there.
cut out there, Aaron. What was that last bit you said?
Oh, I'm fucking terrible at the minute. So that where was I? Okay, yeah, sorry. So for everybody who's been asking me, and the reason I haven't got further in my isolation playthrough, I have been editing the Romulus episode, which will be out in the next 15 minutes. So the video version will be available on YouTube shortly, and to be fair, I've actually already published the audio one while we've been on this. So go and listen, and you can all stop asking me when the Romulus review's coming out. We do have an interview with Fede recorded as well. I started doing that earlier. We've also got an interview with Trevor Newlin, who played the alien in Romulus. And we've got some more to schedule with the various artists who worked on the film as well. So keep an eye out on the YouTube and the RSS feeds for those in the next coming months.
Indeed, a lot of good interviews planned. I'm very much looking forward to the ones we have with us.
Yeah, I didn't cut out again.
What was that?
I said hopefully I didn't cut out then.
No, I think we got all that bit. But yes,
I think it's me watching the YouTube and the stream, and yeah, I'm not doing very well.
But yes, thank you again, everyone, for joining us on your Sunday, and we will see you next time.
Bye.